Welcome back to another episode of the Property Management Show, where we deep dive into the world of property management, marketing, and entrepreneurship. Your hosts are Marie Tepman and Brittany Jones from 4.5 Marketing Agency. So 4.5 elevates property management businesses by delivering targeted marketing strategies that effectively boost owner leads. Our special guest today is none other than Rand Fishkin. Yeah, the Rand Fishkin. It's a name that's synonymous with the world of SEO and digital marketing. Many moons ago, he co-founded Moz, and if you haven't heard of it, it basically revolutionized SEO tools and education for marketers everywhere. He also is the author of Lost and Founder, a book that is a brutally honest take on the startup world and, a typical journey as a founder. More recently, though, Rand has been making waves with his new venture called SparkToro, and it's changing the way marketers like me and Brittany understand and target different kinds of audiences. So, Rand, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure, Marie. Thanks for having me.
And so, my first question is, for the longest time, you have been a prominent voice in, SEO and kind of like this data-centric, like content marketing, right? Like always start with keywords, look at the data. But since you've left Moz and now you've co-founded SparkToro, there's been this like pivot to basically the opposite. Can you share a bit with our audience more about this kind of pivot in their beliefs and your view on digital marketing?
Yeah, sure. So I think this kind of comes down to when you have a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And in the world of digital marketing, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of channels and opportunities to reach an audience and build a compelling brand and sort of show off what you do. But because I was, sort of addicted to and grew up in the SEO world, my entire focus was always, target keywords, build links, make your website accessible to search engines, optimize these technical aspects and issues, all that kind of stuff. And I viewed everything that marketing did through the lens of SEO, comparing every other channel against, well, what's the return on investment I could get from ranking for these keywords? But a few things are definitely true. One is over the last, especially, 6-7 years and exacerbated by the pandemic in the last 4, almost everyone is doing pretty decent SEO, right? So if you were to take someone who maybe they don't feel like they're performing very well, they're ranking barely in the top 20 or top 50 for the keywords that they care about. If you rewind 10 years, they'd have been number one, all of them, right? Because the competition just was not that fierce. SEO was this incredible opportunity for, about 15 years, from probably 2000 to 2015. It was just remarkable what you could do if you had any sort of savvy. You could be in the, bottom 40% of SEO skill set and still get tremendous amounts of traffic. Google was growing like a weed. All of those things have changed, right? So competition is way higher today. Almost every savvy business owner in almost every region and country, in almost every sector and industry, knows what they're doing with regards to SEO, at least the basics. And at the top of the market, the competition is absolutely fierce for every single term and phrase. The second thing is that the demand is not growing, right? Google has basically acquired every human with an internet connection. There's not a lot of growth left for them, right? They have 95% market share globally, about 91% in the United States. There's not much room for growth. And so Google themselves has been changing the game a little bit. Over the past 5 years, we've seen the rate of zero-click searches, which are the searches that are solved by Google without needing to click, right? You don't have to click on anyone's results. That has skyrocketed, right? That percent is now nearly 2/3, which is great for searchers because, when you're searching and you just want a quick answer, you don't want to have to click to a website like, when was Ethan Hawke born? Or, what are Bruce Springsteen's top selling albums? And, Google just lists them. You don't have to go click on a site and see the ads and wait for the page to load, all that kind of stuff. So zero-click search is very popular with consumers, but insanely frustrating as a business owner, because all that content you created, Google is stealing it. They're putting it in front of your potential customers. They're taking clicks and traffic away from you. Even if you are getting some brand value from that, you don't know that you are because you can't see it, right? It's not going to be in your analytics. So look, these forces have combined to mean that SEO is not the opportunity that it used to be, certainly not the golden opportunity that it used to be. And I think if you're a creative person, an entrepreneur, you try and look for other opportunities, right? So what else in the marketing universe could I do that would give me a similar sort of competitive advantage to what I had with SEO in the early years?
And so
sorry, that was a long answer.
No. That was good. That was good.
I loved it. Yeah.
I'm curious to know, when did you notice that there was this shift happening with the tide?
Yeah, I want to say probably right around the 2014, 15, 16. That's when I was still at Moz, right? I was noticing this change, right? Mm-hmm. But I think, to be honest, it was still the case that pre-pandemic, so like 2018, 19, there was still a tremendous amount of opportunity in the search marketing field. Now, I don't know, it's a little bit like billboard advertising in the 1980s or 90s. Every company's doing it. The rates are very high. Unless you can stand out from the crowd, you're not probably going to earn that much of a return on investment. It's super hard to measure. Everyone's aware of it. Everyone's doing it. It's not unique the way SEO was for those years.
Mm-hmm. And so during our recent webinar of yours that I watched, you were talking about the importance of distinguishing online platforms that are sources of influence versus entertainment.
Yeah,
can you explain that concept to our audience? Because I think it's really interesting, and I could never do as good a job as you explaining it. So please do for our audience.
I mean, I don't know about that, Marie. I bet if I have you on my podcast, I don't have a podcast, but if I did, I bet you'd do a great job. So no, I was going to say that as we were talking about these previous issues around SEO sort of becoming, no longer this golden market opportunity, I bet there are several listeners who are thinking to themselves, oh, is he going to talk about TikTok? Right? Because TikTok has been this massive rising trend, and to a certain extent, Instagram and YouTube Shorts as well, right? Which are playing on the same thing. I mean, Instagram Reels technically has a significantly larger and more sort of advertising functional audience than even TikTok does. But those sources of influence, which I think is a reasonable thing to call those channels, are very particularly focused on entertainment, right? So the content there is not similar to the content that you might see if you are doing like SEO kinds of things, or B2B content marketing, or even participating in other platforms like a Reddit, a LinkedIn, YouTube, turned into a copy of Truth Social. Threads is kind of replacing Twitter for a ton of people. I think about 100 million active users, and their behavior looks a lot more like old Twitter's behavior. So this is essentially, if you think about those platforms, right, like a LinkedIn, Reddit, YouTube, Threads platforms, there's a lot of niche interests that are serving niche functions, right? So you might find botanists in the UK who all cluster around a few accounts, podcasts, YouTube channels, subreddits, Threads accounts, LinkedIn accounts, and they sort of follow the same sources. They have these conversations about what's going on in that field. That's not what happens on TikTok, right? So at TikTok, what happens is I am looking for something to distract me for 7 to 70 seconds, and then see another thing that will distract me for 7 to 70 seconds. And interestingly, with TikTok, you might say to yourself, but I can follow people on there. Isn't the following behavior still valuable? Like, don't botanists cluster around No, they don't cluster around anything, right? Botanists, like any of us, are like, ooh, person dancing with a chipmunk, then person dancing with a squirrel, like fun, like follow. And whereas if you were to follow a YouTube channel, right, subscribe to a YouTube channel, YouTube will show you when new videos from that channel come out, right? If you subscribe to a subreddit, posts from that subreddit will appear on the homepage of your subreddit feed. In fact, your whole feed will just be posts from the subreddits you've subscribed to, and maybe ones that they recommend that they think are also related to those. Same thing is true in threads, right? The For You will show you stuff that's similar to what you've engaged with before, and it will show you stuff from people you follow that have earned engagement. TikTok is unique in this way, in particular, because they prioritize showing things that are likely to keep you addicted to TikTok. So like scrolling to the next video, you only have a very small chance to see the things that you've actually followed. So for example, Brittany, if I followed you on TikTok, I don't know if you have a TikTok account, let's pretend you do. If I follow you on TikTok, TikTok might be 1% more likely to show me videos from you, short posts from you, than they ordinarily would. And so the TikTok followership is the lowest value of any social network that has existed to this time. And it sort of fits with that entertainment mindset. That's what I'm really talking about, Marie, when it comes to entertainment network versus source of influence or place where you have relevant conversations. And if you're a marketer, for example, in property management world, you probably care much less about reaching the broadest possible audience for a few seconds with a brand impression versus being present in a highly relevant space where highly relevant conversations are going on, right? So what would I generally say, right, if you're trying to attract property owners to your rental management company, should you be on TikTok? I would put that very low on my list generally. That's not to say that there's not somebody who's probably doing an okay job with it and reaching the right folks and all that, but I would put that very low on my list. I probably would put things like LinkedIn or Reddit or Threads or YouTube, building an email newsletter, getting on relevant podcasts, being present on other people's YouTube channels, right? I'd put all of that stuff in front of the entertainment network side.
Yeah, I think there's this, bright and shiny thing complex. And also you have other voices in the industry like Gary Vee's, like, get on the platform before anyone else can. And I feel like you should take that kind of advice with a grain of salt because Gary Vee is speaking to the broadest audience, right? Like if you are making, I don't know, like handmade wallets in your garage and you're trying to sell them because they have this unique feature, like maybe TikTok is the way to get sales because it's like you don't have a market yet, like you have the potential to reach people who don't know this exists and who may need it and not realize. But if you are in, especially I think B2B or in service businesses, I feel like it's so specific that if you're putting all your money and effort in a platform like TikTok, and you might see like, hey, I'm getting followers, but are those the types of people who would actually be working with you? I feel like that's like really interesting point of view.
I think that's exactly part of the problem. And I'd also say, when it comes to Gary Vee or folks like him, right, his marketing agency works with the world's biggest consumer brands, right? So he's talking to whatever DreamWorks Animation about like their new movie and promoting that, or P&G about promoting, Dove soap or whatever it is, right? So like extremely broad audience, brand matters a lot. Even if you only see, whatever latest product from Dove for 5 seconds in the middle of a TikTok reel, great. Like that's actually a useful brand touch for them. They have their calculations of like how much lift is created by broad brand impression. Fine, wonderful. But that's not you, right? That's not your type of marketing. And so I think that that type of universal advice, anytime I hear it, I get very nervous and concerned, right? Essentially, it is great for building an audience. And it creates sort of the psychological panic among marketers that makes them think, oh man, I really have to do this thing and I should keep listening to this person and I need to chase this trend. And that's not actually true. Marketing fundamentally is about going to the right places with the right message at the right time and reaching the right audience, which means you can wait, right? If ChatGPT never takes off as a consumer platform for, discovering answers to property management, property management questions, you don't really need to do ChatGPT marketing then, right? It's sort of like saying, gosh, do I need to be thinking about conference and event marketing? Well, have you already confirmed that your audience is going to those conferences and events and how they learn about new products and make brand decisions? And does that happen at events? And if the answer is no, you don't have to chase that trend any more than you have to chase any other trend. And so I just worry that when things become popular, people think they're supposed to be part of them. This is not true.
Yeah. So speaking of, like you were alluding to like attribution and, Brittany and I started working at this like teeny tiny marketing agency called 4.5 around the same time. That was like almost 9 years ago. And I remember, the core of our business is like organic marketing. And ever since we were interns, we've always heard our customers complain about the lack of direct attribution of content marketing and leads that they get. And there came a time where we tried to take on this big project of creating like a dashboard. We were going to, find a way to perfectly attribute the ROI that content marketing gives. Like we were going to like do this like revolutionary thing. I got into marketing science. I was working with a professor from the Rotterdam School of Management to try to understand like marketing analytics and customer lifetime value and how to map it to sources. And it's so funny because I went down that road to try to perfectly attribute marketing sources, organic marketing channels to lifetime value. And then when I started sharing data with them, anonymized data, they said, your sample size simply is not big enough. So I was like, we're talking about, I have about like 1,000 customers in my data set. And they said, we need about 20 cohorts, and each cohort has to be about that size. So you only have 1/20 of, 20th of the size that we need to do this kind of analysis. And I'm just like, but we deal with small business owners. No one's going to have that many customers. We're talking about like big multi-million-dollar businesses. And so I said, I asked the professor, like, so what would you recommend I do, like as a small business owner, if I only have one cohort, basically? Yeah. And she said, sometimes when you cannot rely on data, you have to rely on your gut. And I'm like, what? And
I had to hold Marie's hand for a few minutes after that.
I was like, I just wasted a year of my life studying this.
That's a smart professor. She is absolutely right.
Yeah. Because she said, like, you can do the analysis, but given your small sample size, it's not going to be statistically relevant. Like you cannot make like broad broad statements about your cohort because you're just one cohort. So it's like you can still do the analysis, but just know that like what you find for that one customer is for that one customer. And then you kind of have to trust your gut. Like, well, how many of the customers do I think it's like this? You cannot just say like cohort A spends this much and, they have success in, these channels and stuff like that. Because I just, like if I do that, she said, you can't trust the data because there's not enough data points. So then you trust your gut. And so I was telling Brittany, I was like crying. I was just like, I just wasted my life. And it's like, it amounts to anything. And
she was like crying, to be fair, but she was like, Well,
I was crying inside. I cried after our call.
Okay.
But so interesting that I kind of felt defeated. And then I stumbled upon your more recent content talking about marketing attribution and about how attribution is like kind of fair game for multi-million dollar businesses who have all the money to invest in specific attribution like channels, formula software. But for small businesses, like it's almost like, are you going to spend the time and money trying to nail down attribution, or are you just going to spend the money trying to find unique ways to grow your business? So that really, really resonated with me. And I was kind of selfishly like, hey, okay, like I didn't waste my life. And so can you talk more about like the attribution problem that I know you've talked about in your recent content, but like for the benefit of our audience, like give them an overview of kind of like this problem that we have with marketing attribution?
Sure. Yeah. So there's two problems here. One is that channels that have an incentive from sort of the platform or network level to show you attribution will always be overweighted. As an example, Google or Meta advertising, or TikTok for that matter. They will show you fantastic data in a dashboard about every ad that you buy, people who saw that ad, how many of them eventually visited your site, how many of them eventually converted, right? If you put the tracking pixel on your site and the conversion event in your analytics, that their channels are going to look like they contribute a ton of marginal new business to you. And yet, I have never, ever worked with someone who shut off their advertising and didn't see that almost all those conversions came through anyway. So they were like, wait, we were spending $10 million last quarter on Facebook ads. And we decided to shut it off for a month just to see what's the marginal contribution. And we got about 91% of the same amount of conversions that we were seeing. They came through anyway. So what was happening there? And what was happening was Facebook and Google and Instagram and TikTok and Reddit and LinkedIn and a bunch of these platforms, Apple especially now, and Amazon, they are extraordinarily good at knowing what customer journeys look like, right? They have a tremendous amount of data about where people go on the web and what they do on the internet because of their ubiquity. And so they can do a great job of making sure that your advertisement is seen, whether that's a pay-per-click ad or a retargeting ad, remarketing, display ad, whatever kind of digital advertising we're talking about. They will make sure that that is seen somewhere along the journey of many people who they know are likely to become your customer. Because why would you work hard to make more new sales when you could just take credit for sales that were already going to happen? That's the entire model of digital advertising. And for a long time, especially in the era of sort of cheap money, right, that we've had the last 20 years, until this recent like Fed inflation crackdown, CMOs and chief revenue officers and CEOs were all instructed growth at all costs, right? You've got to grow, not be profitable. Profitability, that we'll kick that can down the road to some other time period. The important thing to do is to grow. And so no one was willing to risk losing 2%, 5%, 10% of marginal growth in exchange for a much more profitable business because they weren't spending on advertising. Now, obviously, things have changed, even for those big companies. But if you're a small business, if you're a medium-sized business, if you care about profitability, this has always been a boondoggle, right? It has always been the case that Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, right? They are taking credit for conversions that would have happened anyway, and you don't know how many until you shut it off. Do they create new demand? Yes, some. Do they create nearly as much demand as they say they're creating? Absolutely not. And simultaneously, those big platforms also control how you can track and measure attribution for organic investments, right? So Google decided in, 2014, 15, no more keyword data if you're not paying us, right? They used to tell you every keyword that someone came to your site with, what page they landed on, what search term it was for, right? And so you could say, oh gosh, we're getting a lot of searches for X X is sending us this much traffic, this much of that traffic eventually converts. We should try and rank for more similar phrases to that and all that. That's gone, right? They now have Google Search Console, which doesn't tell you nearly with the efficacy or accuracy or attributionability that it used to be when it was provided right in the referral. Same thing. If TikTok sends you a visit, right, through the profile link click, it shows as direct because TikTok hides the referrer string. They will not tell you that you actually got a visit from that person who clicked on that. The same is true for about 15% of all LinkedIn traffic. It's true for all Facebook Messenger. It's true for Slack. It's true for, Mastodon. There's this huge dark social problem where essentially a ton of the traffic that is technically being passed from these networks is hidden so that you don't know that it came from those networks. Very strange to me. I would want to provide that attribution if I were them, but this is, I think it's a bias toward paid, right? This is why you should pay us to advertise, because then you will see all the tracking. And there's a lot of directors of marketing and clients and CMOs and CEOs who will not believe you, right? Who will look at the direct bucket and be like, well, that's just people typing in our website. That's just brand, right? Everything else, I want to see the attribution for it. So this problem has always existed. It's always been a challenge to determine like what actually changed a consumer or business owner's mind and got them to buy. You can do all the sophisticated measurement you want, and I kind of don't believe any of it. I believe in lift-based measurement. I think that works, right? So like I invested this in this channel and I saw this amount of lift. But if you're telling me, oh, you know what, paid search should be responsible for 18.5% of this one conversion, and then organic search should be responsible for 7.2% of this conversion, and brand is responsible for 30.9%. Oh, get out of here. That's pseudoscience. I don't buy it at all. If we're talking about not even multi-million, but if we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars a year of advertising spend, you can in aggregate make reasonable estimates about that kind of thing. And anything below that, nope. Even in the tens of millions of dollars, I've never seen a model I thought was compelling.
I remember, Brittany, I remember we had a client before, back when we were like account managers still. And, it was the same problem. They were like very data driven with the way they were running their business, and they worked with us. They were happy. But they said, we just couldn't prove that our success was because of you guys. So they quit. And after 7 months, they came back and we said, what happened? They said,
that's more than one client. I can't even tell you how many people have done that, which is good.
And they literally,
good
they literally said, they literally said, we don't know, but our leads just stopped. And
oh man. It's
so
almost like you
they're
don't
still working
have
with
to
us, right?
prove every attribution. Yeah. So this is what I'm talking about when I say lift-based measurement, right? What's frustrating to me is that people believe the Google ads dashboard, the Facebook ads dashboard, the Amazon ads dashboard so religiously that they take that model and then apply it to organic and content and email and social and brand and SEO and all of these other things. And they say, you have to prove your worth the same way Google proves their worth to me. But they but rarely do they shut off their Google ads and then say, wait a minute, Google was lying to me about 9.5 times out of 10. Mm-hmm. We all know they do, right? It's very obvious. I have yet to meet a business owner who, when I philosophically have this discussion with them, they're not in agreement, right? Almost everyone agrees philosophically, but then when they get into their practices, into the weeds of how they do their marketing, suddenly it becomes but how can I reliably invest in that and choose it? I've been saying this for a little while now, but I think we have to go back to, was it the Wanamaker quote from the 20th century of, I know that I'm wasting half my advertising spend, but I don't know which half. And I would encourage you to waste half of your marketing spend and not worry about which half is being wasted, but put it into channels and sources of influence that you believe reach your audience and are compelling, and occasionally test shutting things off to see which ones produce lift and decline. This is the only way to truly sort of logically invest. If you're just reliant on attribution dashboards, you are being lied to by a combination of sort of, software products and big advertisers in the tech field, or big advertising platforms in the tech field.
If you do decide to churn something off to see, right, like what the impact is there a timeline that you'd recommend? Like wait 3 months, wait 6 months. What does that look like?
Totally depends on the business. So,
Right.
For example, in high volume, low price point consumer goods, 30 to 60 days is fine. In high price point, long-term services contracts with, significant research and investment time put into it by a business, 3 months, 6 months is probably the minimum. Usually you don't have to go longer than 6 months for anything, right? Because you will see, just to the point you were talking about with your clients, Brittany, those leads will start to dry up, right? They'll see the top of the funnel shrinking, right? Traffic shrinks, number of lead forms filled out shrink, all that kind of stuff before they even see the conversions dry up. Mm-hmm. So they have that kind of, hey, we're looking at that. So rough estimate in sort of, B2B services world, 60 to 90 days. And you don't have to shut it all off, right? If you're very nervous about this, cut off half of it, right? Go, okay, we're spending, our pay-per-click searches, for example, right? Google pay-per-click searches. We are bidding on our brand name. We're bidding on some competitors' brand names. We're bidding on sort of things that we have historic guesses, right? And competitive intelligence are probably relatively low return on investment compared to some of our other spend, right? Like, whatever we're bidding on, I don't know, property management plus our geography. And like, we think that's a pretty good term and we can see the clicks from that. And okay, you could test turning that off for 30 days if you wanted to, right? And just see, right? Just to see like, okay, how much marginal contribution is that really responsible for? But I might instead, take the 50% that's like, okay, our brand name, our competitor's brand name, some terms outside of our geography, some broader terms and phrases that are related to content, but not related to the product that we sell. We're going to shut those off for 60 days. We're going to see what that looks like. Oh yeah, okay, we can see that, that amount of traffic, right? Maybe the traffic that was driving is down 20%, but weird, organic is up 12%. Oh, okay. Those people were going to click on us anyway. And it's just that the paid search ad appears above our organic listing and looks more compelling because that's what Google wants, right? And so they're charging. Anyway, you get the idea.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Because that, like, typically, right, like everyone wants to rank for the money keyword, which is in our industry, it's like property management, your geography, right? And so there's this obsession with, okay, if you're doing content marketing for me, when can I expect to be number one, right? And it's like, there's this obsession with like, oh, but my competitor down the road has been in business for 30 years, but their content sucks. Their website sucks. I have better page experience. Why are they ranking number one? And then they kind of don't even pay attention to the fact that, well, ever since we started doing content marketing, you've been ranking for more and more long-term searches. And like, you are getting leads, but there's this obsession with number one. And so, like, given that we're talking about like attribution and also sources of influence, like what can you say about that kind of mentality with like business owners who are like, because, okay, caveat that, like, there is a difference when you're high up on Google search for your money keyword, but it's like, how would you explain to a small business owner
leads are
like
increasing, right? Like leads are increasing, but your ranking isn't increasing for that perfect keyword that you magically would rank number one for.
In my opinion, that is a far superior strategy. If you're getting more leads and you don't have to show your competitors that it's because you rank for these sort of vanity terms that are, that everyone's chasing. You have a golden calf, right? Like you really are in a wonderful position compared to them because you're not at risk of this one new competitor can take me out, or Google changes the way the results work, or they instantly answer the search with like a,
zero click search. Yeah.
Yeah. AI generated result or zero click search, or they put 7, paid searches above that, or the maps box goes above or below where it was before. Like any of these things can completely take out someone who's reliant on those, high value sort of 2 or 3 money keywords in their geography. But if you have a long tail of traffic coming from a bunch of different sources, people are referring folks to you, your brand is strong, you're getting stuff from social networking, and you're getting stuff from people subscribed to your email newsletter, and you're getting value from people who are finding you via podcasts and events and YouTube channels and all this kind of stuff. Your competitors are never even going to know how you're kicking their butt, right? Mm-hmm. Google, it's right out there for everybody to see. You can see exactly how to beat you. So I don't understand the obsession with it. I do understand the obsession with it, right? Vanity is a powerful psychology, right? There are people who absolutely, and plenty of business owners and entrepreneurs are among them. I hope you don't have to work with any of them, but who would happily take a 20 or 30% cut in their business in exchange for more visibility, right? The ability to show their network, right? Their golf buddies, I'm number one, right? Because looking good is more important to them than performing well.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, and I have, in my consulting years, I worked with clients who were like this. I remember an art gallery owner, an extremely wealthy and deeply problematic one, who was like, I don't care about anything except having, do you remember the old Google toolbar PageRank? They used to show PageRank in the Google toolbar. He just wanted a 10 out of 10. Oh. That was all, right? Nothing else. I don't care about how much traffic I get. I don't care about selling my art. I'm not trying to, I just want, we have a 7 out of 10 today. You get me to 10 out of 10 on PageRank. We got him to a 9, but it was just
never good enough.
I mean, it was just it was a stupid goal, right? Like
what did this do for you?
Yeah, right. It does. Yeah. The only thing it did was I want to show my buddies, right? My other rich friends who seem to care about Google toolbar PageRank, whatever, 2007, 8, that I'm, my toolbar is longer than their toolbar, right? That was that was the entire goal of the campaign. And I think they spent $100,000 with us to do it, right? Because we were like, this is going to be insanely difficult and a little bit, we're going to have to do some sketchy stuff to get you there. But hey.
Yeah. At all costs.
Right? Yeah. That was exactly what this guy wanted.
Okay. That was a lot of information, wasn't it? So we'll pause right here. Now stay tuned for part 2 of our conversation in our next podcast episode. That's where we will continue our discussion with Rand Fishkin on money keywords, vanity metrics, and of course, we're going to delve into generative AI. We will also talk about how to make the immeasurable measurable. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as a reminder, this podcast is brought to you by 4.5 Marketing Agency. We help property managers get more owner leads through marketing. So we can help with websites, SEO, online reputation, videos, blogs, social media, paid advertising, you name it, we can help you. Visit our website 4andhalf.com to learn more. That's FOURANDHALF.com. So thanks for tuning in and see you in part 2.